Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ. For those who are new to the channel, and of course those who want to tune into Facebook either live or later on, as well as Twitch and YouTube, and our own Discord server, thank you very much for being here. We talk all things tabletop role-playing games, Dungeons and Dragons, and much, much more. And each week we take a theme. This week we're talking about Mortal Kombat. And each day we then subdivide that theme. So we've got Monster Monday, Trope Tuesday. We'll get into what that means. World Building Wednesday. And of course today, third pillar of exploration, Thursday. Oh, why is that important? Because there are essentially, and somewhat generally, three pillars of tabletop role playing games. You've got first pillar, combat, challenges, physical challenges, and all that kind of stuff, conflict. We have our second pillar, role playing and social interactions, role playing with each other at the table and interacting with the NPCs and other monstrosities and things in your role playing games, talky stuff. But we've got the third pillar. The third pillar is exploration. And what is exploration? Well, exploration is pretty large. It's actually in many ways undefined. With exploration being essentially everything else that is not something that talks to the player characters outside of the player character's purview. It is the world, it is everything they can interact with, they can see and touch and feel, and that is essentially interaction. Well, we are going to take that even further. We're going to absolutely positively embrace the idea of location, and this fits perfectly with our theme of talking about Mortal Kombat. Why? Because it is the epitome of exploration in many ways. It is the location. It's a great place to have these fights, and when you play the video games and any battle video games, more often than not, you're in a flat arena with the environment shaped around the player characters in the video game. But we're going to take that even further and going to use this as an excuse to make the locations that we're going to have our conflicts in that much more exciting. And we've talked about it. Well, we've hinted about it all week long. But today we're gonna reach in our toolkit, move the pocket gnome out the way, and reach in our other back pocket and pull out some of our great ideas to have some of these great conflicts. So, of course, the first thing is we want to absolutely positively have as much how do we say interaction, exoticness. We want to make it memorable, and I'm a huge proponent of having making the environment have not just a narrative effect, but have it become a mechanical effect in your role playing game. Whether you're talking about Dungeons and Dragons, any iteration of Dungeons and Dragons, and any other kind of role playing game you have out there. And if we're going to have combat on the blood and sands in an arena, why not even go further? Now, one television show, I always bring up movies and TV show. You guys know I do that. And one of my favorite shows was a 4-season show called Spartacus. Literally, one of the seasons was called Blood and Sand. Your typical wearing the loincloth speedo, a bunch of weapons, and gladiators fighting on the sand. And in Blood and Sand, during the last episode, to ramp up things even larger and greater and higher, they set up fire pits. So they literally made a ring of fire for all the gladiators to fight. And they had lions. I don't remember if the television show did this, but you have the idea of lions being chained to the walls that could attack if you got pushed near them. And I think pulling in all of the amazing things that we can think of in terms of having these battles, I think really ramps up what the exploration pillar could be. Now, of course, exploration can be something as generalized as exploring the unknown. Hey, what's out there? We don't know what's around the corner, what's on the other side of the valley or the mountain range or over that next sand dune. And so exploration really is encapsulate the journey. Where are we at? What's going on? I don't know what's around me. Let's explore. And exploration, the reward for exploring is discovering new things, maybe understanding what dangers are out there. If the player characters are summoned together to do battle with an enemy and they're thrown into a massive blizzard and snowstorm, maybe they don't know, maybe they're standing on a frozen lake, or there is there's a place of safety and warmth they can get to, maybe a cavern, or uh, who knows if there's a chance of an avalanche, or the snowpack that they're walking on might give way to have them fall through a crevice or something like that. And so incorporating all the dangers that we think of in our classic dungeons, where there might be pit traps and swinging pendulums and those kind of things, we absolutely positively can create and take from those things and create a reason why. And if you're going to have a combat, a tournament set up by the gods or dragon lords, or a broken world, why not? Hey Cam. Cam mentions that face up rusty rakes scattered across the battlefield and covered with leaves. Every step could be very painful. I don't know if you guys remember this from the old cartoons, where you'd have the of course abused protagonist running around the yard, and every time they stepped on the rake, the the handle of the rake would lift up and smack them in the back of the head, or in their face or something like that. But maybe not as ag- obnoxiously comedic. Something very similar could happen. The the players are against their adversaries and they're looking across the battlefield, and it's maybe it's a stone battlefield with like random stones or square uh, tiles or something, and if they stand on a particular tile, it activates something on the battlefield, right? And much like what's a kid's game like oh playing like Battleship or something, if you, depending on which stone you step on, might activate another random stone, or random because you don't know what might happen, another stone will activate, causing a particular effect. And so once you step on, say, stone number A3, which it doesn't have to be labeled, but you get my reasoning. So you step on A3, and then another stone, maybe a 10-foot, maybe they're like 5 foot by 5 foot or 10 by 10s, and it lifts up in the air like rapidly, maybe tossing whoever's standing on it up into the air and off of it. Or maybe if you step on B7, it causes that stone to like erupt in flame, or maybe flames like leap up or come down. Or there are crossbows, mechanical crossbows, or ballista on the out edges of the tournament or something, and you step on C1, it causes the a poison dart to shoot out or something like that. So it could literally be set up as, hey, here's a flat plane, and guess what? Wherever you stand or get knocked into or pushed into, it's going to create something else. And that would be rather complicated, especially in theater of the mind, but kind of cool to for a PC to hit an enemy, push them onto a stone, knowing it will affect and activate another effect somewhere else on the battlefield to help an ally out when, I don't know, a gout of flame or poison gas or magical high gravity or something like that, or heck, tentacles reach out of the ground or whatever and comes up and affects someone. But we can go even further with this. Personally, I think we can go even further by saying, like, if we brought up the fact of, what if the player characters are and their enemies are transported to these distant lands, right? So the spectators can watch from wherever they're located, but the battles happen in an abandoned car lot. It could be in blasted buildings, considering a modern day. This could be in any kind of natural environment, whether it's on the side of a mountain or in a dense jungle or on a beach, or during a snowstorm, or heck, during a hurricane or something like that. Like, they could be transported somewhere, and that way maybe you want to allow them to travel even further, especially if the conflict isn't like Ding, 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 start the fight, and everyone's like rocking back and forth and just punching each other. Maybe the conflict happens over hours or days, and that way you could have like a thick jungle where maybe reach weapons are very difficult or maybe even useless to use, or if you are further than 10 feet or 30 feet or something, you're automatically covered by half cover or full cover for everyone. Or if you try to cast a spell, this is something that we often don't use, but is perfectly applicable in, say, specifically Dungeons and Dragons. 99% of all players have the ability, character options have the ability to cast spells and or spell like effects. And a lot of the limitations are A, the components, verbal, somatic, and material components. Now, the material component part I wouldn't mess with too much, but the verbal component, of course, is they have to be able to speak. So if someone's choking or they can't speak or it's silent or something like that, it could affect that as well. But the somatic component, they need to have their hands, uh, I believe at least one hand needs to be available to cast a spell. And we've seen like the Doctor Strange with the funky hand motions and whatnot. But if they're dangling off of something, maybe climbing those vines in the jungle or dangling off a cliff on that mountainside, they may not have a hand to use. The second part of magic is if you read the spell effects, many of them say you can only target things that you can see or you are aware of. Now, you can be aware of something that you can't see. You can hear enemies moving around in a dense jungle, but you can't see them, in which case you probably could use it. But if you have to target something that you have to see, maybe in a dense jungle, just because your allies are out there screaming and yelling, being attacked, and you're trying to help them, and everyone's like scattered and running, and you've got your like rangers and rogues sneaking off into the distance, maybe that healing word spell just won't work on them because you can't see them. And this is where we have the conflict where it comes to like, well, everyone's got dark vision, and that's true. You know, it's very easy to get dark vision in Dungeons and Dragons, but that's not the if your concern is to create a visual hazard, darkness isn't the only thing. It can be fog or mist, steam. It can be smoke or dense jungle and foliage, and more. A maze. It could be an abandoned old temple, and there's tons of like these massive stone pillars that are holding up you know, as if the giants lived here. And there's thousands of these stone pillars everywhere. And what if those stone pillars, you run around a stone pillar? Now your allies on the other side of a stone pillar. You have to literally move around to see them, to, I don't know, bless them or something. Off the top of my head, I can't tell you which spells are that work that way. I believe like magic missile, you can only target creatures that you can see. And so, again, even in darkness, let's say something's further away and the PCs are and adversaries are thrown into a dark cavern. And if your vision only goes 60 feet and there's something 80 feet away, oh yeah, you can hear it. You can hear the growl and feel the the moist, humid breath of what's ever out there. But if you can't see it, you can't aim for it. So, let me get off my soapbox here. Okay, so um, one of the ways that we can start to add to our environment if we're going to have these battles is look up look up traps, right? Flip to the part in your book and look up those traps and see what's there. There are plenty of plenty of things. God, I wish I could show you this video. It's so stupid. Because it's Tesla Ranger put in the in the gif of Tom, you know, from Tom and Jerry just getting smacked in the head by nothing but yard tools, and it's hilarious. And yes, it is. It's so funny. I wonder if I get in trouble for posting that up there. But ooh, let me say this. Cam says a samurai's castle in the interior with all the paper walls. You know, more more so in like the samurai castle idea. We know that that castles in ancient Japan were designed to specifically um, dissuade armies and the military from sieging. So they would do these like mazes, and they would have like murder holes and all kinds of complicated ways. Like you could never make a straight line into these tall tall Japanese buildings. And so they weren't just walls, but like the rice paper walls is a perfect example of cover without cover, right? So an arrow can easily go through a rice paper wall, but you can't see what's on the other side. And of course, we see it shown dramatically, right, with a blade going through the wall and blood splurting on the rice paper walls. And of course, you can hear what the hell's going on the outside. But guess what? You don't know how many ninjas are on the outside or how many people are attacking. As a matter of fact, in the opening 5 minute scene, the, actually one of the best parts of the recent Mortal Kombat movie, that opening 5 minute scene is awesome, and we get to see the rice paper wall sliced through with a blade. And as the blade goes up through the rice paper wall, we see the blood splatter on it. And so the rice paper wall replaces what we would think of as darkness in our role playing game. Yes, you have magic missile. No, you can't target what's on the other side because you can't see them. Yes, you can draw back your crossbow or your arrow and shoot at something randomly, but no, you can apply instantly disadvantage to attack something on the other side. I would add a this is something we add in cinematic environments. You want to even the odds first if you can't see something. So you roll a die, any die, and if you get an even result, then you can target the thing with disadvantage. Otherwise, you're just shooting off randomly into the air because you're shooting while you can't see at all. And that's an important aspect, whether it's rice paper walls or um, uh, sheets and tapestries hung outside to dry from the laundry, or banners flapping through the air on the rooftops or something. I'm trying to think of some other visual disruptions, a massive parade or party or celebration where people are carrying like banners and flags and things like that. Those kind of things. Even Camp says, um, I don't know what that means. I add a mischance, but maybe that's because I play Pathfinder first edition. The idea that like, well, there's also the idea of like how disadvantageous do you want to make the thing for the player to do the thing, right? So, for example, if the players are on a battlefield where fog or smoke or mist or geysers shoot up randomly around them, and you're caught inside of like a puff of smoke, and you are you are both surrounded by smoke, making it harder for you to be targeted, but also you can't target things on the outside of it. You kind of have to make that distinction. But I like the complication of it. You know what I mean? Like where which is rules wise, it's a little bit difficult to describe, but narratively, I think we understand that if someone, it's why the military has smoke grenades, right? They throw down smoke to create cover. And so, therefore, if you are on either side of it or inside of it, you can't target. And if you're on the outside of it, it's difficult for you to target something on the inside. But of course, we have ways to alleviate that. Hey, anybody got a gust of wind spell? Sure, go ahead and use that. And of course that means interacting with things creatively, which is always a good thing to have people interact with your world creatively, whether the PCs are running around and running, jumping, leaping, dodging, and that kind of thing. So even Deadman says Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Second Edition had rules for that as well, about targeting things that you can't see. And it depends. And of course, different games do it differently. Fifth Edition, of course, has advantage, disadvantage. Pathfinder and all other versions of Dungeons and Dragons used iterative numbers, plus twos, minus threes, et cetera, et cetera. Cam brings up, a bunch of curtains in a giant courtroom, like in Jet Li's movie Hero. Yep, in the movie Hero, which visually the movie Hero is brilliantly set up. All the different colors, each scene had its own colored theme and stuff. It's so good. You can kind of see through them, you can kind of cut through them, and you can totally get tangled up in them. Exactly. And My I'm you know I am the self-appointed third pillarist of the tabletop RPG community. I'm waiting for someone else to knock me off my throne, jokingly. But the idea that the environment is a neutral arena, right? Where you can hide behind. Let's go with the stick with Cam's comment about the movie Hero with Jet Li, and you have like the saffron banners flowing through the air, and you can get tangled in them and slice through them and hide behind them. If the PCs come up with the idea of hiding behind them, hell yeah, give it to them. Now they can't be targeted. If it means that the PCs have difficulty finding their enemy, and someone's like, I'm going to use a burning hands to start burning the tapestries away. Let them do it. Why not? Have it work for them and against them. And if you have great ideas to for both the adversaries and the players to use and abuse the environment, go ahead and do it. Why do I say go ahead and do it? Because it's not like you're going to run out of it. If there's a thunderstorm, it's not like you're going to run out of thunderstorms. Or if there are tapestries, so what? Maybe later on you use I don't smoke instead of tapestries, and another time you use there's a torrential rainstorm or something, and it's difficult to see, et cetera, et cetera. There's all kinds of stuff, and I feel like we get scared, and I get it. We get scared when we throw in random elements into our games, and we're unsure how the player characters are going to use and abuse it. And sometimes we feel like the abuse might be taken a little bit too far. But the only reason to be scared of that is if the player characters are going to get an advantage of using the environment, it only gets abused if that environment is used 99% of the time throughout the entire campaign, right? So in the movie Hero, Jet Li is fighting these people as he's talking about the past when he talks to the Emperor. Every single fight is in a different location. So the environment is always something wherever the players are at, that's where they fight. So if you keep changing it up, maybe they're fighting on the docks, and it's storm season, and salt water and white capped waves are sweeping across the docks, and then later on they're fighting in the king's chamber, and there's banners and tapestries in the corners and dark areas and pillars everywhere. And then maybe later on they're fighting on a mountainside, and there's like winds blowing, and it's very cold, or so on and so forth. We are able to change the locations. Now in a Mortal Kombat style, we could also have the idea of like um the angry gods, or whoever they are. Maybe they start throwing monkey wrenches into what the player characters are doing, right? Like, for example, they might have buttons they can push, or maybe even the spectators can push buttons to make things happen to the people inside of it, with tilting floors and flames shooting up, and giant rounded boulders on metal chains swinging down from the ceiling, or swinging down from the clouds even to swing across the battlefield, etc. Vampanoid, hey, what's going on? Vampanoid says, one of my favorite traps I design is illusory to be placed in hallways. Players see a pitfall poison spike trap that's a 10-foot jump across. It's actually 20 feet. Fun. You kind of, I hear where you're going with that, Vamp, but you kind of don't want to do a Grimtooth's FU trap. I get it. It's fun if you do it once. Uh, if you do it a little bit too often, it can be like giving a middle finger to your players. It's the haha I gotcha kind of thing. And I feel like when it the difference between traps and the environment is the foreshadow of it, right? So if there's a major storm, you see dark clouds and it starts to rain and it gets windy, you are telling your players, hey, guess what? There is danger coming up. I'm not hiding it from you. But there is danger coming up. Yeah, Vampanoid says, I want to play your game. I love traps like that. It's so silly, so dumb. And as a matter of fact, even in oh Tomb of Horrors is literally was literally designed as a trap dungeon specifically to challenge the player's creativity and to disrupt their expectations of what to expect in the game, right? One of the first things you find in Tomb of Horrors is a hallway, and then there's a pathway painted on the floor in the hallway, and it makes you think, oh well, if you follow the path, you'll avoid the pit traps, or if you stay off the path, you'll avoid the pit traps. But technically, the pathway is a red herring. There is no correlation between the path and the pit traps that you follow, right? It's that kind of thing where it's like, ha ha, I gotcha. um um Cameron says, "Oh, what about a bunch of animated carpets in a haunted castle that fly through a battle with animated armor, causing interruptions and may surround people? They could lift anyone standing on them." And I love that idea of, you go into a haunted castle or something, and there are animated objects around that are disruptive, like you said, like carpets that fly around and could randomly block your vision from seeing someone else, or they could attack people, like what was the rug of smothering or something. And not only do you get smothered, but you, of course, your vision is disrupted, so you can't see anything as well. Animated helmet drops on your head and turns backwards or something like that. Yeah, oh, absolutely. Furniture moves around, steps go flat so you slide back down the steps, things like that. Yeah, hell yeah. Um, hey, hey, Rickard says a flat surface with nothing to hide behind to use your advantage is also an environment. Absolutely. So you could, players who are at a disadvantage in say a thick jungle might want to lure their enemies out into a open field, an open glen, to target those individuals, right? Or burn them out, or smoke them out, or create something that makes them fear to stay in the jungle and make them run out into an location, or heck, just use intimidation or some kind of taunting of an enemy to get them to stand out in the open. So yeah, open spaces are an environment themselves. I just feel like maybe open spaces are the default and rather than the exception. But I absolutely agree with you. If you're on the open plains, heck, I wrote a book. The cinematic environs, plains and grasslands, is all about open fields and plains and things like that. And despite the fact that it just sounds like grass forever, it's not. It's more dynamic than that, and you can have a lot of fun with it. Cam says, Tomb of Horrors equals complicated middle finger that takes your clothes and dignity. Sure does. It sure does. Now, the because we're using Mortal Kombat as our mental fuel, there I think having different arenas of battle where we know there are traps specifically set up to disrupt you, I think is not a problem, right? But the the middle finger part of it, I think, is the like if you Questing Beast is another YouTuber, and Questing Beast did a thing on where he's reading through some of his favorite and worst traps of Grimtooth's traps. And for those who are tabletop role players that are not of a certain age, Grimtooth's traps were these books that were written where they basically had these obnoxious, overly complicated traps with these funny diagrams that detailed, like, oh, you walk into the room down the hallway and the room tilts, and when it tilts, it knocks all the players down into a flaming pit. But if you stand back on the other way, it tilts backwards the other way. And you fall into a pit trap with spikes, poison spikes or something. And a lot of the traps were like, A, you would never know they were there. B, no way to get out of them. And C, it took all your dignity away, right? And you really don't want to do that, because at the end of the day, it sounds fun, but really it isn't, because either your players figure a way around your trap, in which case there's no dynamic interaction, or you capture your players and you just do the Simpsons ha ha got you, and your players are pissed off, and you're just happy because you like to see somebody else's you like to ruin someone else's fun, and that's not good. I think having continuous interaction in a place, like, oh, before you walk into the room, swinging axes on pendulum swing back and forth. Great. Okay, so you let your players know there is a danger in front of you. There are swinging pendulums, and oh, there are enemies ahead of you, or the challenge is to get through the room with tentacles reaching up from the metal grates below you, and there's swinging pendulums swinging back and forth. Yeah, then now you let them know there's danger, and now they can interact with it, and you've already set up. Yeah, this is going to be hard. Let's see if you can figure your way through it. Rickard says, wasn't Tomb of Horrors made specifically because Gygax players were getting sure of themselves? Oh yeah, it was, and this was at a time when tournament modules were a thing. And when I say tournament, literally players would show up, and it was a grind. These tournament dungeons were like, great, we're going to show up at the convention, and groups of players would play through these dungeons to see how far they could get, and it was specifically designed not as a, oh, this is a dungeon that makes sense and has ecological and historical and common sense. No, it was, you're going to go room to room and navigate your way through it. And this was at a time when making a perception check was not a thing. It was 10-foot pole, sand, ball bearings, feathers, chickens, um, talcum powder, ropes. What's some other stuff? Mirrors. This is when we would carry all this crap on us in dungeons, and that's where analysis paralysis came from, where it would take 3 game sessions to get through one room because you would check damn near everything. Yeah. Kylie is like 36 chambers of Shaolin time. Yeah. Each chamber was something different. Yeah, check out Master Killer 36 chambers is awesome. Oh man, you guys are silly. Vampanoid says I used it in a fungin. Fungin. That's a t-shirt type. Paying homage to Tomb of Horrors or White Plume Mountain. White Plume Mountain's another one that had things like that in it. I told my players to prep 2 characters and they picked which one they'd use randomly. Yeah, that was at a time when, which was brought back through DCC, Dungeon Crawl Classics. The idea that you would have, 2, 3, 4 player characters sitting in the background because you knew one of your player characters would just get wasted. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. The now Rickard says choose the environment that fits the scene. Combats are served just as much as the set dressing as a social scene. Exactly. The set dressing might be of a different nature, but the care that you put into the scene is seen in a while will still add flavor. Yeah, absolutely. Um, Meaning, like, yeah. Oh wow, I didn't know that. Good, I didn't know they did that. Absolutely. If the scene makes sense, this is just my particular opinion, but I think a lot of people realize this. If it makes sense for a thing to be in the scene, it's easier. It costs you nothing to explain why it's there. So when I said storm tossed oceans, white capped waves, PCs fighting on the docks during a hurricane, you already in your mind, you know what the danger is. Uh-oh, a wave is going to sweep my PC off the docks. Oh man, it's salt water. Maybe there's Sahogan, if that's how they're pronounced, jumping out of the water to attack the PCs. Maybe my PC might get knocked down or knocked to the ocean. Oh, maybe I might even drown. You said storm? Are there lightning bolts coming down out of the sky? Right? So I'm already preloading. I'm foreshadowing the idea that, hey, here's the dangers that might happen. Everybody roll a d20. You roll a 1, you're getting targeted by a lightning bolt, right? Or hey, everyone make a dex and or strength saving throw or an acrobatics or athletics check to keep your balance, because roll a die, bam, everybody roll a d6. You rolled a 1, yeah, you're getting targeted by that wave that sweeps across. Or on initiative 10, you're going to have to make a saving throw or get knocked down. And guess what? The Sahogan don't even worry about it. They go right into the water with you and try to grapple you underwater and to drown you or something, right? So the deal is both the natural environment and or foreshadowing a danger ahead of time, going into the king's chamber and understanding that there are murder holes everywhere, going into a vast desert and knowing that there's someone tells you there's quicksand ahead. Letting people know what's going to happen ahead of time is not spoiling the danger. I think it allows you, it alleviates you as a dungeon master to go, yeah, you know what? Yeah, there's danger ahead, and I'm letting you know it. So when it happens, don't get pissed off and go like, you're just trying to nerf my character or something like that. Now Rickard says, I still say traps make 0 sense in 90% of dungeons. Yeah, it's still okay. Like like the movie Indiana Jones, like for to an extent, it is a trope. And no, it doesn't make sense, but it is kind of fun. But if you take a look at Indiana Jones, we got the opportunity to see a ton of traps that he already knew were there to begin with, gets to the end of the dungeon and then has to run his way back through those same traps. So while like Caius is like, yeah, I agree with Rickard that 90% of traps don't make sense, there's still something fun about them. I think the bad part is our execution. It's not the traps, it's the execution, right? Like for example, the a a moat is not a moat is a trap around a castle. Just because you can see it and expect it doesn't make it any less of a hazard, right? A portcullis, two portculli that can trap you in between and they pour hot oil on top of you and try to set you on fire if that was a real thing. Doesn't matter whether it was real or not. If it happens in my world, is that a trap? Sure it is. Is it something you might expect or someone or you explore the world or you socially interact with other people that's like, yeah, if you try to scale the walls, you know what? Guess what? They're going to use sticks to push your ladders off and knock you down. Is that a trap? Sure. Is it a classic trap? No, but you know the danger. So I don't think it's the trap. I think it's our execution of them. And I feel like having additional factors to worry about on the battlefield for me is a type of conflict in and of itself that I feel like can really disrupt the players going nova on our adversaries. So if the players are thrown into an arena, fight your enemies, you fight your enemies, and it's just I roll initiative, I hit them, they hit me. There's no interaction. But if both enemies are dropped on the battlefield and they look around and when they make a step and all of a sudden the battlefield starts shooting gouts of flame or necrotic lightning or blades swing out or chains shoot across the battlefield and nets spring up and both sides are looking around like, oh, shit, okay, where do I step, what do I do? Now you have some interaction. So yeah. um what is it? Kaya says, while entering a dungeon, the adventurers come across a copy of Grimtooth's traps with price tags next to each trap and an invoice for works tucked into the final page. Oh no. So I don't know if you guys grew up with this, but back in the day, there was a store called Sears, and they would put out this wish book, and the wish book was basically it was basically a catalog for kids to suggest to their parents what to buy them. And as a kid, like in September, November, September, we would lay down and open up the wish book, and I could just imagine a bunch of wizards going flip, 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 and like going like, what? A pit trap's only $1,500. Wow, there's a discount, something like that. I know you're being facetious, but it would be pretty funny to have like a crew of guys like a guild that only builds traps, and they're just like these dwarven and gnomish inventors. Like, well, I don't know. Okay, we're gonna have to bring 16 guys in, but yeah, hey, that's the thing. Cameron mentions serious question. What do you think the hazards would be if you were fighting inside of a giant whale? Giant monsters, fighting inside of giant monsters is always a cool thing. And living dungeons have been done before. I would suggest think of what's inside of a person writ large. So stomach acid, expanding and contracting hallways, much like blood vessels and throats and tubes. Lungs would cause rushing of air, so breathing in and out. Yeah. Stomach acid pit. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. There we go. Stomach acid pits. What? what would be the equivalent of a white blood cell, like gelatinous cubes or other kinds of oozes, as well, dripping down from ceilings. Um, Not just even stomach, but if you're going like any kind of fluidic thing inside of the body, can also cause a rush of fluid to push people. So, for example, like the heart and lungs that breathe in with the lungs, it would be rushes of air. So you might have to make saving throws to hold on, or people get blown down the hallway to the lungs, in and out of the lungs, or blown out of the what's the top? Uh, 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 Whales are air breathers. Whales, dolphins, and things, they breathe air. They don't breathe water. So you get blown. You get blown out of the hole at the top of their head. I can't think when I'm doing this. The spout. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The blowhole. Thank you. The spout. Yes, thank you. Yes, yes, yes. So there's a possibility you might get blown out the dungeon, the giant dungeon. When it comes to blood vessels, you could get pushed into the heart, and you have the sphincters opening and closing, the valves opening and closing. So you could get blown through a valve. You might get slammed inside of a valve. Uh, those kind of things. So I think that would be kind of fun. And we listen. That's We're not the first ones to think of that. I think there is a massive 20 level dungeon that's nothing but a living creature that you go inside of to do a 20th level dungeon. If not, I'm not mistaken. Someone made that. So I'm not certain. All right, Rickard, because I'm going to try to read this. I know it goes off on the side, but says, no, it's the trap. Traps make sense for things that should never be moved or should be left alone for the rest of time. A trap, a prison where something has been sealed in for all time, a vault for an artifact that should never be moved. That's where, let's see if I can see this. Um, that's when it works. In an old wizard's laboratory, the ruins of a temple of a god, or halls of a cult. No, traps make no sense there. No, oh well, I agree with you. Let me put this back up. I definitely agree with you. Like, it makes no. That would be like leaving your home every day and putting the thread attached to the sawed-off shotgun trigger every time you open and close the front door of your home. Right? That makes zero sense, because even you can get blown away by your own trap. Why would you set up like 15 of these things in your home? Now, locking the door, sure. Or having a video camera, sure. So I think sometimes the context of the trap also should make sense as well. For example, rob a bank, steal the money, and you get sprayed with ink. That's a trap. Now, it doesn't stop you, but it sure does mark you. So a trap could be just a net to stop you. A trap could be marking you with like a stinky scent or something that can be followed. A trap could be a simple trap could just be alerting the authorities. Cam's laughing. A trap could be uh, you guys are silly. Cam Cam is like, sounds like I'm going to have to watch the Magic School Bus. They went into the human body all the time. Or no, no, no. Go watch Osmosis Jones. That's even better. But yeah, the idea that, man, I lost my train of thought. It doesn't matter. Anyway, you guys get the point. Sorry. Caius of Glantry says, inside a whale, churning floor. Yep. Acid pools, oozes and gelatinous stuff, noxious fumes, and Pinocchio. Yeah, stop lying there, guys. Stop lying. Yeah. Oh man. I love it. But we're I love where we're going, but we are squirreling just a little bit. Caius goes on to say, would burrowing insects set off the eternal trap? If so, why haven't they yet? Would an adventurer in the form of a beetle uh, set off the traps? Now, it depends, right? Like, having a dungeon where traps have already been set off is also a good thing too, where maybe somebody came through here and set off the first three traps and died, or some kind of burrowing thing went into a dungeon. But let me get a little bit meta here, guys, and say, like, we are we as a community are negative content creators. And what I mean is, it is extremely easy for us, because as a person who's a glass half full kind of individual, it's very easy to go, oh, don't include this because it doesn't make sense, right? It's the monks don't belong in D&D argument, okay? But on the surface, it's easy to go, yeah, this is dumb, this is stupid, this doesn't work. My contention is instead, it exists in the game world. So why? What circumstances would make a thing work? Otherwise, why bother having a trap section in the first place in the game, right? And my feeling is they do work. It's the context in which they work, right? Pit traps exist all around the world all the time. Abandoned buildings, in the deep, anywhere in the outside environment, deep jungle, mountainsides, snow-covered peaks, and tundra expanse and whatnot. There's pit traps out there everywhere. People falling. How many little boys have fallen into a sinkhole or something and got trapped into a tube, and the news teams come around to get the kid out, right? But it's the context of where they're at. So my feeling is, yes, it's very easy for us to go around and go, yeah, that's dumb. And I'm not blaming you guys because I am a victim. I actively try not to be that guy who's like, don't include this because it's dumb. It's the we talked yesterday that monks don't fit in D&D. Well, no, but expert unarmed combat does fit in every single culture around the world since human beings got pissed off at each other across a campfire and said, I'm gonna punch you in the face, right? So from that point on, people have been fighting with their open hands and weapons, and there have been experts in doing those things. So it's not that they don't fit. I think it's just the contextualization of them has not been updated for our use. So that's all. Okay. I'm off my soapbox, even though I don't think I guess they do still sell soap in boxes, but whatever. Dead man's like, oh, the news team went to the site of the female toddler trapped in the well. Of course they did. Absolutely. Sorry, going back up to the chat. Sorry about that, guys. Mike Gould says traps I have used are things like murder holes that drop fluids like blood or animal fat that attract wandering guard animals, or slight inclines that are greased. Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, you can even foreshadow these things, or that kind of stuff. you know. Um, Rickard's like, cult members succeeded in their plot, so they went out drinking, and now they return to their crazily trapped hideout drunk. Hilarious. That would be hilarious. Like the cult members are like, we summoned Cthulhu. Yeah, they go out drinking and having fun. They stumble back like, no, 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 give me the keys to my wagon. And they stumble on back and get killed by their own traps. And Cthulhu's just shrugging his shoulders like, sorry guys, gotta go back to the outer realms. Thought we were gonna have a big old talk, but oh well. Mm-mm-mm. Tim Michael says I also have a creature called the Wandering Pit. Yeah. Although I suppose you could make horror monsters that are like, like pick the top 10 horrors that are out there, and that monster becomes the thing you fear the most. Oh man. Mm-mm-mm. Mm-mm-mm. Yeah, but now, going back to a little bit serious, Mike Gould says traps could literally be faulty or broken construction, broken ceiling beams, weak floorboards, etc. Yeah, construction sites work very well for this. If they're the evil king or warlord or council of seven that I always bring up is constructing yet another monument to their narcissistic greatness, and the PCs have a fight around a construction site. Of course, there's falling ceiling things recontextualized as beams, or falling pit traps, which is literally climbing up the scaffolding, or the what, not poison dart, but the firing a projectile at you from a distance trap, which might be something held with tension, like something ropes or something pulling something in the air, and the metal beams might fall on you or be fired across the courtyard or something at you by accident or whatever. I mean, whatever the case might be, these things could be the stuff. Caius is like, I love the idea of a wandering pit. Yeah. Although I suppose if you want to get very dream statey, what's the game? There's a visual representation of this. In Invisible Sun by oh Robin Laws. No. Anyway, in Invisible Sun, there are a race of people who are nothing but a humanoid outline of another place of existence. They have no facial features. They're just like they're a humanoid outline of like grasslands or Monty Cook. Thank you very much, Monty Cook. Why is it Robin Laws? Monty Cook's Invisible Sun. Yeah, yeah. There's a group of people. There's a person that's like sitting in a bar or serving drinks or something, and they got their like arm on the table, but their outline is of like a grassy field in some like far off place with the sun rising or something. And that these people or creatures could run around and like, I'm a pit trap, hi, and like, hey, I'm a ceiling falling, you know. I love it. I love it a lot. Um, yeah, Rickard says, you did bring up something though, natural traps. Traps that were never meant to be traps in the first place. Old ruins where erosion has been a thing also work with what Michael mentions. Or what see come on, show it to me. Uh oh no, you're fine, you're fine. So the point of that is like player characters have to fight their adversaries. Great. They get dropped into a jungle. Cool. Okay, so the fact that there are natural hazards that are represented as traps is a thing, you know. Hey, it's been raining in the rainforest for, every other day. So if you step in a certain place, the muddy incline will have you slide off and slide into the ravine or something like that. Or the vines are so thick that your pole arm doesn't work and you might get tangled up in the vines as well trying to run through it. Or um I don't know, coconuts fall out of the sky or something. I don't know. I mean, you could come up with all kinds of things. And human beings have been taking out very large animals for since the beginning of time by using traps and setting up temporary traps or luring their prey into places for a long time. So that's a real thing. That's a real thing. Um, Michael says a burrowing insect could literally aerate soil to the point where objects collapse. I've had yard structures fall over because ants mine the entire area. Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. You can add, not only do you need to battle the purple worm or the boulets, the land sharks, but their tunnels might be something. Not only not only might you have to crawl through them on your hands and knees or shuffle through them like a snake, but they could also collapse on you or behind you. That's a what a great way for a mindless creature to have its own traps around it because they exist. Now, hard maneuvering us back into the fact that we are talking about Mortal Kombat. The fact is that in an arena in a fantasy realm where you have magic and gods or wizards or something like that, an arena could be transformed to have all of these things. An arena where you walk on the blood and sand might turn into that dense jungle or that volcanic region where there's gouts of flame and rivers of lava and um, uh, you know dark blackened landscape that's cracking beneath your feet, and you could see the molten flow of something beneath you or something like that. All of those things could be true at the exact same time, and letting your players know. So I'm a very big proponent of foreshadowing because it absolves you as the game master or dungeon master of doing the gotcha. And also, if your intent as a creator is to have your players interact with your traps, why not set up a situation where your players actively interact with the thing, right? So if you're like, you know what, I'm going to have a hallway with pit traps, and your players go, you know what, we're just going to get on a tensor's floating disk and float across the floor. They have no interaction with what you created, right? So now you're disappointed they didn't do it. They figured out a way to get around it. So now you're not happy. On the other hand, if they just keep walking ahead and falling into one trap after another, you're happy, but they're not, right? So having something that interacts with people trying to stop pendulums swinging across the battlefield, to avoid the tentacles reaching up to try to grab them, to maneuver out of the way of the volcanic region that was magically created in the arena when they're fighting their enemies, to time the geyser that's shooting up the molten lava and push your enemy into it is a way for them to interact. So I like that. Rickard says there might also be old traps still left in the jungle from an old conflict. That's another reason to have traps. I mean, what if tribal people set up traps to that were supposed to trap ocelots or antelopes, and you just happen to come across them, and the tribal peoples are like, you weren't supposed to fall in that. We were supposed to capture some herd animals, and you fell into it. So yes, absolutely. You guys, Rickard's like, we might have done that to our DM, but the hallway was a 6 gated fort and about 5 to 6 A4 pages of planning. Sorry, DM. Yeah, yeah. That's why so many talking heads like myself are like, don't waste your time over prepping. Don't do it. You'll hurt all you're gonna do is hurt your own feelings when you over prep like that. Yeah, it just hurts. Mike Gould says, I combined the wandering pit with a swarm of flying daggers. One drove people into the other. Now that's another thing you could do where the trap is not moving. Everyone knows. Okay, let's pits of acid. Okay, player characters are fighting on a narrow ledge, and there's pits of acid on either side, and the PCs are like, I'm slick, I'm cool, I don't have to worry about falling in acid. I'm just going to go kick some ass. Having a thing in the realm that causes a danger to happen to the player characters who easily can avoid the thing is more dynamic than, say, fighting on the ledge with the acid and then the ledge just starts to shrink or something, right? So players walk across ledge, they know there's acid on either side, they want to go across the bridge, and then all of a sudden here come the giant boulders attached to cables, and they start swinging across. Now you're making it more difficult. Oh, whoa! Now we got to watch out and time it so we don't get hit in the head by a boulder that's got like a DC of like 22 or something to avoid not getting knocked off of this ledge into the acid, despite the fact that my character can do tons of backflips or something, right? So having a monster or a number of interacting things create far more dangers. That way there's something to interact with. Hey, this Rube Goldberg of monster and trap and environment is working to waylay us. Hey, PCs, why don't we pull one of these gears out, these working mechanisms that are meshing together really well to stop them? Much like pack animals having an advantage in a pack, by separating the pack, you reduce their advantages. So, yeah. Oh, let's see. Here we go. Rickard says, I'm still waiting for the fort encounter to be reskinned and come back. Do you mean like, are you referring to the idea that are you referring to the idea that sorry, I just saw your wipeout comment. I'm gonna get to that, but do you mean holding enemies away while you're in the fort, or PCs assaulting a fort and there's enemies inside the fort? Like, or do you mean just both of them? I don't know. So wait, now we have wipe out the cultist dungeon? Sorry, I'm just I'm just picturing like wipeout, and what was the old one? Um most extreme most extreme challenge or something like that, MXC. Oh my god. Oh, that would be hilarious. Hey, maybe there's like fey creatures out there that are like really into that. Ricker's like, nah, I mean the 5 to 6 page encounter we circumvented to be reskinned and reused. Oh yeah. All over prep is future improv. That's my 10-second talking head talking head advice, that all things that you've over prepped that you haven't used, or hell that you already used, reskin it and use it for improv later on. That's where your favorite improv DMs get all that stuff. Yeah, most extreme challenge, hilarious, uh, absolutely hilarious. Most extreme elimination challenge. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh man, I love that thing. Anyway, guys, we've gone for an hour. Got to get out of here. Thank you very much for being here. Tomorrow is Future Friday. A little bit off of Mortal Kombat ish. We're going to talk um, about the idea of technology removing the need for. We're going to talk about the ultimates in Eclipse Phase. The idea that with given enough time and technology, we can make a utopia where struggle and conflict no longer is necessary. So, does that mean, or how do you have a society where we today might be proponents of struggle and conflict and the painful realization that we are better given a lack of resources or time or energy? It is the person that climbs the mountain, the person who overcomes difficulties, and how good or bad is it to have those things? It is the fact that we have a society of, for example, deaf people who do not want the is it a cochlear implant that allows them to hear by having the choice to remain deaf, and a society that says, well, air quotes, you would be better off if we just don't have deaf people at all. And where does that leave those individuals who want to struggle in a society where struggle is slowly becoming something not just given a choice, but an outlaw? So we're going to talk about that part. That faction. So yeah. lastly, Rickard's like, so now we know there needs to be a Fall Guys, the D&D dungeon. Oh hells yes. Fall Guy. Every session we've got to have a stunt. I cast apple boxes. Poof. Underneath you. Yeah, all the outtakes from any Jackie Chan movie with your PCs. Oh my god. But anyway, guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. By the way, please go and check out levelup5e.com. That is where the not quite a Kickstarter yet. Myself, very small part, amongst many other creators, are working with the developers over at N-World to create advanced 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. Yes, from the bottom up, rewritten. Will not have to buy another book or combine this with other books. You too will be able to play advanced 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. It is not Pathfinder. It's not Pathfinder. And how do I know this? Because you can go to levelup5e.com to find all the playtest materials and even the surveys, take part in the surveys to be able to see these things one right after another. Yeah, Cam, thank you very much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. Yeah, you go up to levelup5e.com. You will see all the playtest materials. All the classes have been released. The journey rules have been released. We have a new Destiny's chapter, which takes inspiration and alignment and takes it to another level, so on and so forth. So please take part in it. There's an exploration chapter that's as big, or maybe even at this point, it's probably going to be bigger than the combat section. And the journey rules are just a small part of it that have just been released. So please check that out. And of course, I love it. Oh man, Michael says, love the content, DBJ. Thanks for all you do. I try to, dude. This is my gaming time. And if it means I got to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and try to get the brain started, this is what I do. So yeah, my time. This is it. I I I hope the way we're doing things is better. I just like the free form, top of the head, get together, talk about, just shoot the shit with you guys. So I love it a lot. So um, hopefully we will be able to do more things. Next week, we're going to talk about a movie called Nomadland. It is an Oscar winner here in the States. And yeah, Nomadland. Let's see if we can put that. And it's an Oscar winner here in the States. And my suggestion to you is to watch it. It is not action packed. It is a drama, but I think you guys know that the very little things that I pull from, whether it's movies, television, a random comment or something, but seeing this movie kind of moved me, um, both emotionally and creatively. And I was like, you know what? I think we can pull a shit ton of stuff out of this. So again, we'll do something, and I feel like pulling things that are very related to creativity and action and martial arts and fantasy is always something, science fiction, but Nomadland is none of that, and we can still be creative from something like that. I think all week even. So yeah, yeah, Ricker. Ricker's like, did you say Oscar? You sure? Normally we talk about super bad movies with good ideas. We do. We do talk about like good ideas, terrible execution movies and TV shows. I'm still hate watching Debris. I'm still hate watching that show. Um, I'm an idiot. I'm a dumbass, but I'm still like, oh God, this TV show. Oh, I hate it. When's the next episode coming out? but but that's a thing that we do all the time, don't we? But yeah, Nomadland is really great. It's very simple in its premise, but yeah. So changing it. Am I breaking my own rules? Yeah, I'm breaking it up. So anyway, guys, have a great one. I Wow, Mike Gould's like, yeah, we used to have a weekly really awful movie night. God, I remember going to the for those of you who remember buying videotapes and DVDs, I mean renting them from like Blockbuster and TLA Video and Hollywood Video, just getting the dumb straight to video movies and then renting them and like having fun doing our own um theater 3000, making fun of them and getting popcorn and pizza and stuff. Man, I miss that. Oh well. All right, guys, have a great one. I will see thee later. You guys have a great one. what, what did you say? Robot Wars. M- MST3K. I don't remember that. What is that? We'll leave that up there. Guys, have a great one. I'll see you later. Peace. Bye. See you, Kylie.